Hey, welcome everybody. Let's talk real estate. Your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current commercial real estate market here in Southern California. As we take a no BS look at both sides of the issues driving this market today to find the best solutions going forward. With our man right in the middle, it's Barry Saywitz. Hey, Barry.
Hey, good morning, Paul. Welcome back. We're here for another week discussion of Let's Talk Real Estate. I want to welcome all of our viewers and our listeners back again. And I want to do a special shout out. Here we are already. It's the month of June. And so for all of those in any school environment, elementary, middle, high school, college, if you're graduating, June is the month probably for you. Congratulations to everyone out there that is graduating and moving on, hopefully to bigger and better things. With that said, I think we are moving on to bigger and better things as well here on the show, and the world is changing, there's no question. And so with the war in Ukraine dragging on, with gas prices at an all-time high, interest rates moving up, I don't want to sound like Negative Nancy, but there's some things that are moving in the wrong direction. And so today I thought we'd do something special, and we'd go back into the grab bag and try and answer some of the questions that our viewers had sent in previously that are more pertinent now than ever in terms of the economic and the real estate environment today. So with all of that said, I am Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company and managing partner of Barry Saywitz Properties. Welcome to Let's Talk Real Estate. Paul, let's dive right in.
Let's dive right in. When you said bigger and better, I thought that was referring to me, that you're bringing me back in to read questions from the audience here again.
Yeah, no, we've revived you. And
Revived. I put some paddles on me and got me back up here. All right, well, let's jump into it because you're right. There's a lot happening, and I think people are worried. I'm worried. Joanna in Anaheim is worried. She wrote in a while ago and said, with interest rates going up, do you think less people will buy homes? And what does that do to overall home values? That's got to be the number one question on everybody's mind these days.
Yeah, and look, I went to a cocktail party and a fundraiser, and everybody asked me, what do I do? And I just say real estate, and then they immediately assume that I sell houses, and then they say, oh, so the market's going to tank, right? Or interest rates are up. What's going to happen? That's like the first question that comes out of anybody's mouth. But it's a complicated question, whether it's the residential side or the commercial side. The interest rates going up are not going to move the needle by themselves as far as I'm concerned with respect to the real estate market. There is no question that if rates go up, whoever is getting a mortgage is just going to pay more at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter, and I think they're going to go up more. Every banker that I talk to expects that the Fed is going to raise rates some more. They're not curbing or controlling the inflation at the moment the way they wanted to, and it's not solving any of the problems. And so you're still back to the same dynamic, supply and demand, right? If you ever took economics in school, supply and demand. So there's still very low supply. So some people who were thinking about selling their house are going to now decide not to because the interest rates are higher and they'll have to pay more with whatever else they buy. Other people go, hey, it's the top of the market. Interest rates are going up. It's got to flatten out the market. I should just get out. Mm-hmm. Now, what I will tell you is that I've seen emails and announcements of deals coming back on the market in the last few weeks now that the rates popped up. It causes a sort of whiplash of people rechecking themselves, or it also causes what I'll call the retrade, which is I'm in the middle of the transaction, rates go up, and I use it as an excuse to try and retrade the deal. Mm-hmm. And I go back and try and renegotiate, and either the seller doesn't want to hear it, doesn't want to have it, believes there's nothing wrong, and someone else will pay whatever price you've agreed to pay and says, forget it. Or the buyer gets nervous and says, you know what, this is just not the right move for me. I'm just going to wait, and they bail out. Now the seller has to start all over again.
Yeah.
And from the broker's perspective, it's just more work, right? Because I got to start over and do it all again. So I have no magic answer. I have no crystal ball. What I will tell you is there's no question if rates go up, it's going to cost the buyer in any scenario more money. It has to take some people out of the market. It has to curb the desire. At the same time, it doesn't make more inventory come on the market.
But doesn't it reach a point where, despite supply and demand, I want to buy a building, I want to buy a house, I want to do something, I just can't afford it. It prices most people, at some point, maybe everybody, out of this transaction, all but a few.
Yeah, and so, again, if you just, let's take the residential piece for a second. If I was going to buy a house for $500,000 and rates go up, I can now only afford a house for $450,000.
Right.
And so I either have to look at a different set of homes, or I just decide I'm going to wait it out. And then if I go back to renew my lease, if I'm renting, then my rent is going to go up because the rental market is hot. And so I'm just going to pay more rent and I get nothing for it. At the same time, if I can't really find a house I love, then am I just buying to buy, or am I going to keep kicking the tires, waiting around for the one that I love? And then when I do find the one that I love, I'm willing to pay more for it. So then it may potentially keep the prices inflated. It's really, the supply-demand dynamic is working against the interest rate dynamic. If supply goes up and rates go up, or if rates go up and then as a result supply goes up, you will start to see a softening of the market. And there's no question that the volume of sales, home sales, has slowed. All of the data that has come out has shown that the volume is slowing down.
Right. There's a handful of houses on the market as opposed to the thousands there should be at this time of year.
But if you go back to that cocktail scenario where the perception is, oh, the market's going to tank, or oh, the market's getting softer, the fact of the matter is you still have people saying, hey, there was a house in my neighborhood and it sold for XYZ, right? And my house is nicer than that. My house is bigger than that. My house is on the corner. Mine has got to be worth more. So people still have it in their heads that, I look at what somebody else did and then I'm just going to try and take it to the next level. And everybody who tries to put their house on the market wants the last dollar. And so as the broker, you want the listing, you go ahead and do it. And then what happens is it doesn't move. So you start to drop the price. Now I started at an inflated number and now I've dropped the price. So from the outside looking in, it looks like the market is soft because people drop prices, and now you have a self-fulfilling fantasy. And so we will see how this plays out.
How does it play out in commercial real estate? You guys are more long-term players. You're buying 20-year horizons. You're not, if it goes up or down, great, but we're looking at it in a long-term portfolio asset management position. Is it different commercial real estate? Too many of the residential guys are always thinking short-term. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to take some money and run. Does that same mentality happen in commercial real estate?
Well, on the residential side, you're really looking at the homeowner who says, I'm not going to flip it, right? I want to live there.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. The whole flipping thing, I think, is off the table for the moment because there's not this huge upside that you've had over the past several years. But on the commercial side, the different dilemma that you have is it has to pencil. It has to make some sort of sense.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just buying a bad investment because you just want to place the money somewhere. So you still have foreign money coming in to some degree. You still have people in a 1031 exchange that don't want to pay the tax, that don't really care if it's as good a deal as it should be.
Right.
But at the same time, somebody who is not in that position, he's sitting around. I mean, that's what we do. We look at deals all day long. And if the deal is not a great deal, well, and it doesn't have to be the best deal, it's just if it's just a bad economic deal, it either needs to be a great property in a great location where it's a good long-term hold, or I'll just pass. And then I'll let somebody else buy it. And,
we've seen this play before. I think back to the 80s, and the Japanese came over with all their money and ran up hotels and office buildings to exorbitant prices, and then took it in the shorts, lost it. There was something about, and yet you say it's supposed to be a numbers game, that somehow people resharpen their pencil or recalculate and come up with a different conclusion. I guess it doesn't look so bad. Like you've talked about the cap rates and stuff. Well, maybe the cap rates, I don't need that kind of return and stuff here anymore.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting dynamic to play out. But I mean, back to the person's question was, should I buy something, or is the market going to get softer?
Yeah.
I think, look, if you're looking to buy a house and you find something that you like and you can afford it, then you jump on it and you move on it, because it's not like there's 100 things to pick from. If you want to be picky, be picky. If you find something, don't just buy something for the sake of buying it. But I do believe interest rates are going to continue to go up, so you're going to pay more later on.
Right.
And then prices will have to come down to combat that. And if they don't, then you will still, at the moment, you're paying top dollar and a higher interest rate. Now, keep in mind, interest rates today are still at the low end of the stick for the last 40 years.
Like we were not that many years ago.
Right. So, but it's all relative, and part of it is public perception. So I think, to each his own. You'll have to take your own criteria and take a look at it as you go.
All right. So I picked one out that's sort of the flip side of this. Richard from Los Angeles wrote, with the stock market being so volatile and going up and down, do you think people will start to pull money out of that and look to invest in real estate as something more stable?
Yeah, and that's an interesting question. I think people were doing that last year where they were creaming the profit off of the stock and then trying to put it into something else that might be more stable. I think at this point in the game, people have already lost a bunch of money. And the stock market's already down. So the question is, do you ride the storm out in the market and take a long-term approach to it? Or do you bail out and then try it into bricks and mortar and try and do something else? I don't think you're going to see a big swing of people bailing out of the market to take the loss to then go put it into real estate, because I also believe that people's perception is that the real estate may flatten out and and it still may go in the wrong direction. At the same time, watching the stock market on a daily basis will just give you heartburn.
Yeah, and where else do you have to put your money other than investments, either in the stock market or mutual funds or whatever, or in hard assets like real estate? I don't know what the other money. You can't just let it sit. You don't get any interest on it.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And so the other issue is, do I have a short-term or long-term approach to my investment strategy? And if I have a long-term approach, then one would say the stock market was at 36,000 a few months ago, and now it's at 32,000. And so maybe now's not a bad time to double down on some of my investments or add to it from a long-term perspective. The numbers are down, but in the short term, you look at your portfolio and it's down. Everybody's down. So
who makes money in this?
Well, the guys that
market?
the guys that are coming in and out of the stock market are going to make money, and the people that are buying stocks that have struggled, that are in it for the long haul, I think in the long run will make money. But the bankers are going to make a little bit of money because interest rates are up a little bit. But you need to be very careful in this environment about what you're doing. The idea of just throwing money at it. If you're buying for cash, if you're a big investment company and you have money and you're buying with very little debt, then the interest rate issue doesn't really matter to you.
You talked about that at the real estate conference that you recently spoke at, and everybody was trying to say, how do we get deals financed today? And you said, just pay for them all cash. That sounds so simple, but I don't think most of us either thought that way and piled up enough cash to do that.
No, and the person who just says, look, I've been scraping to save up the down payment to do something, or I want to leverage it because I want to try and buy something bigger, that doesn't apply to you. And so then the issue is the increased interest rate going to really significantly impact your cash flow or not? And on the commercial side, people buy properties under the premise that they can raise the rents because they have yesterday's lease. And so you're assuming that tomorrow's lease would be more. And so you're buying for a longer term hold. That's the guy who buys a 3 cap who finances it at 5%, because that's a guaranteed money loser out the gate, except that in the long term, it will pencil.
Exactly. So he's banking that he can get more for it down the road here, and he'll take the losses in the short run here. Okay, well, I don't know if we've ever seen a market like this. Is there? That's my question. Data? You guys all live on past data, historical data. This is what happened over the last 20 years, 40 years. This is what happened before. Have we ever seen things like this with rising interest rates and constrained supply and hot demand and all, and wars and crazy things? We seem to be in kind of unprecedented times. We had somebody in from Northern Trust a couple years ago when this all started, an economist, and he said, I don't know how to predict going forward because I've never seen anything like this in the past. Show me a COVID situation. Show me any of these things. I don't know how to.
Yeah. Well, look, you had the Fed secretary said, I got it wrong, right? Janet Yellen said, I got it wrong yesterday. So
that bluntly. Yeah.
So if she admitted she got it wrong, then I don't know who you trust or who you look to for advice going forward. The issue is you're in somewhat uncharted territory. You went from everything's rosy, everything's good, we're coming out of COVID, we got a strong recovery, to you have a lot of different things that are going on. I think one of the biggest determining factors of what's going to happen going forward is going to be the jobs market and unemployment, because you have unemployment at historic, I read an article this morning, at historic 53-year low, right? The unemployment rate nationally has only been less than where we sit today, I think twice. As far back as you
almost,
can go.
It's zero.
And so if you try and break down that data, if you have unemployment nationally at 3.6%, you have unemployment in California at something like 4.6%, which is one of the highest unemployments in the country, but still only at 4.6.
Right.
Pre-pandemic, in California, we were at 4.2, 4.3. So The difference is you have people who have taken themselves out of the job market, who don't want to work, who want to work remotely, who only want to work part-time, who just decided to retire because it was just not worth it, or are just taking a breather because they don't want to risk the health issues or just take time off. And so you now have employers that cannot hire people for whatever the jobs are, whether it's serving tacos at Taco Bell, whether it's loading pallets at a warehouse, or whether it's coming into an office to type up letters. And that is going to stifle the growth of companies because they can't grow if they can't hire people. And if they can't hire people, they can't deliver their product or do whatever it is that they need to do.
And even if they hire, they can't seem to hold them. You and I were talking about this. We're in this crazy period where as soon as somebody gets a job, they're leveraging it to get a better job.
Yeah, but there's no, until people get laid off, and I'm not suggesting that's what people do.
We go back to that.
But until people get laid off, you don't have any more workers in the available workforce, right? You have all these baby boomers that are coming out of the workforce because they're at retirement age, but you don't have people behind it. And so the problem is, and that's what this article was talking about, is that if companies start laying people off because you go into a recession, right, because they're pulling back because of inflation or the cost of doing business, and they're just saying, hey, I'm cutting costs, that will put people back in the job market. That will ease up the unemployment. Otherwise, the only way that you can deal with the fact that there are more people looking for jobs, more jobs than there are people looking for jobs, is to get the economy cooking in the sense that companies can grow. Well, you can't do that with supply chain issues. You can't do that with inflation. And the government is doing what they can to slow it down, not create job growth. And so you don't need any more job growth. You need to figure out how to get businesses to thrive. And I'm no prognosticator, and I'm certainly not here to be a politician about it. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a business owner, you're on your own. Nobody's really helping you. You're going to have to figure out how to work through it. But in the interim, it's a struggle. I don't know how else to describe it.
Okay, well, lots of questions we could delve into. Only a few more minutes left here. Let's talk about another potential gorilla in the room. Maybe it's not a gorilla anymore, COVID. Is this still going to come roaring back in a new fashion? Is this going to continue to depress office involvement? And will this permanently change the office market?
Yeah, so I'm a little sick of talking about COVID.
This was Michael from Irvine sent this one. I'm sort of paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
Irvine, the center of all our
center of COVID, right?
Yeah.
No, so, and so you still see people, and it's all over, but certainly see it in Irvine, people walking around with masks outside on the street. I'm not sure who they're protecting themselves or anyone else from.
I think they're just so scared that they could double up and triple, and they'd probably go to sleep with a mask on.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a certain percentage of those people that they're just used to wearing the mask, and they do it, and then that's fine, to each his own. But COVID is not struggling the economy. There are so many other factors that are stifling what is going on in the economy or that dictate what's going to happen.
But has it changed the office market?
Well, so the office market, yes, because you have companies that are still not fully back to work. And you have a change in the environment of the office market of how people work and where they work and do they sit in open areas. And I've seen offices for clients of ours where they've got giant plates of plexiglass between cubicles. I got a piece of plexiglass here in the studio between you and the guest for that same reason. Right. You have that, or you have people that they have cubicles and they've staggered the cubicles, and so now they're not using all the space. So when the lease comes up, they want to take less space. And even for our own hiring, I have people that email in and say, hey, is it okay if I work from home? And, that wasn't part of the job description. So I think that you're still going to have those, but, I mean, there's no new news there that's going to change that we haven't already been dealing with.
Right.
The new stuff is all these other things that we have no control over.
But what do you think about Elon Musk? We're doing this on June 2nd for those listening to it in the future sometime here. Elon Musk came out, I think, yesterday, and said to his employees in an internal memo, time to come back, folks. If you're not coming back, we're assuming you're not working for us anymore here.
Yeah, and that gets back to, I need my people in, I need the collaboration, and I'm just kind of over the whole excuse of not, working in the office. Now, again, we're back to this discussion of there are certain jobs that can be done remotely without a problem. There are others that cannot, and then there's corporate culture. And so each company will decide on its own how they go about doing that. And whether they can do it effectively or not. And so until then, I mean, the office market's going to struggle because people are not taking as much space. People are not growing because if you can't hire people, then how do you grow?
Right.
And then also the office market still has some vacancy, so I have other options out there that are available if I want to look around. We have a lot of clients that look around and then just go back and wind up renegotiating their existing lease to stay because they don't want to move because there's a headache and a hassle and a cost to move.
Several people wrote in similar kinds of questions that said, where is the opportunity to invest in commercial real estate? Well, one person from Andrew from Newport says, I'm thinking about buying a small multifamily investment property. You've talked famously, that's how you got started, buying a little fourplex or something when you were out of college or young or whatever here, and that leveraged one into another in your case. Is that still the way to grow, or should I be buying a little office, a little industrial building somewhere here?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we want to look and start buying stuff in China, right?
Or something else, yeah. Or should I be buying it in
or
Tennessee?
Or he
something?
could start how I did. I bought a large cardboard box, and then
Is that what you did?
I bought
Okay.
a bigger box, and
Okay.
then I graduated to a garage, and then so on. And so, I think my advice for someone who's looking to get into the investment world is, there was a conversation that we had in the kitchen the other day at the office was, hey,
That's where the best conversations take
that's,
place. That's why we got to get back to work.
that or in the restroom, right? I mean, that's where all the big deals get done. But
that is true.
the fact of the matter is, if you want to get into the market, you should get into the market if you find something that makes sense. Don't make a dumb decision, but don't dictate whether you're going to get into the market or not into the market based on interest rates, because they're going to continue to go up. And don't do it based on the fact that you think the market's going to flatten. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I talked to said, I'm not going to buy a house, I'm going to wait till next year. And then next year came around and the market was up again and up again. If you applied that strategy, you would have held off for the last 8 or 9 years.
But what's the sector I should look at? For example, a couple of years ago when you're involved in this, people started throwing up apartments everywhere. I said, there's too many apartments. That's
Yeah.
going to be oversupply. And now it's undersupplied. We still need more. Nobody was thinking industrial buildings. Maybe even you. Nobody was thinking, oh, we don't need that many industrial buildings anymore. That's the
Right.
lowest part of the thing. And now we can't get enough because Amazon, everybody else wants a warehouse. Yeah.
Well, one of the big things that came up when we were talking about it in the kitchen is Amazon announced they're giving back a bunch of real estate because they just don't need
Really?
it. So now the issue is we had a conference call with a client said, hey, Amazon's giving back all the space. The market's going to tank. I'm just going to wait. Right? Look, Amazon doesn't dictate the entire market. And then
As much as we think it does.
and then secondly, look, the vacancy rate for industrial space in Southern California overall is somewhere around 1%, maybe 2%. And so Amazon giving back some space is just going to get gobbled up in a day or two, and then it's going to be gone. And Amazon's not going to not pay. They're going to continue to pay. So the landlord's not hurt. They're just going to sublease the space. So I would just say the industrial market's not going anywhere other than staying tight. And that is simply just a function of supply and demand, period. And so if somebody wanted to get into the market, the investment market on the industrial side is a difficult thing to do. It certainly makes a lot of sense, but it's a tough entry, a barrier to entry, just based on the fact that there's limited opportunities. If you want to get into buying a multifamily property and buying a duplex or a fourplex, the issue is going to be, can you raise the rents? Are you buying a good property? And then when you go to finance it, interest rates go up, you're going to pay a little more. And so the buying the house and the flipping it thing, I think, is sort of, you missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, I think so.
And so, you either make sure that if you find a good property and it's a reasonable deal, I say do it, but don't force it.
You've talked about this a little bit. A follow-up to that answer here. Do people ever calculate the other costs? They're just thinking of the property as an asset, and it's going to go up in value, or I'm going to make more money when I raise the rents. They never think about the management issues. They never think about the other costs, ancillary costs, as you've talked about in other shows here. Should we think of more of that before we jump in and buy anything?
Well, you need to be
As an
intelligent
investor,
and informed as to all the costs going in the deal. If not, then you've sort of missed the boat. But at the same time, I don't know that the cost of trash or the cost of recycling should make or break your decision to buy a property or not. And no one's going to have any sympathy for you if you're trying to negotiate and say, hey, the trash went up, so therefore I need a cheaper price.
Right.
But what I will tell you is that operationally, I don't care whether it's an office building or whether it's a multifamily property or retail or anything, trash has gone up. That is a direct result of the Sacramento implementing stricter controls and requirements on organics and on recycling and trash disposal.
We're
and the
rapidly
dumps.
changing. We're going to have more cans and more
I got a whole collection of cans in my house for different things. I got whole colors for everything, right?
We
And
just
so-
had Orange County Waste and Recycling in here, the county agency, and talking about this. And their argument is, hey, there's only so much land to pile this stuff in. We've got to figure out ways to.
Right. So, and then you have
reduce
gas
it.
prices, and it costs more for the truck. So that's going up.
Right.
You have Edison raise their prices. You have the gas company raise their prices. You have the water company, in most instances, raise their prices. Now you have a drought situation in California. And then you have labor costs that go up. And so everything, taxes go up, insurance has gone up dramatically. So all of the costs have gone up. And then the question is, okay, does that, as an investor, all cut into your profit? Can you pass any of that on to your tenant?
Right.
Will the tenant even take it if you could pass it on, or are you going to get pushback from them? And so these are all things that go into penciling for an investment.
So does it lead you into out of one sector and into another? Because some of those costs can get passed on in a triple net lease, some can't,
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, a guy who's open to any opportunity, I don't think buying an office building for investment is really your ticket in today's environment. And buying an industrial building, you're not going to get a break on price. And buying a multifamily property, the same kind of thing. So I don't think it pushes you one way or the other. I just think you got to be careful in analyzing all the costs.
Okay, well, last questions from me. What is it that we're not seeing? We're all focused on the wrong ball, maybe. What should we be looking at? Don't look over there, look over here.
Yeah, my biggest concern is the public perception and what you hear in the media and what you read and what you see on your cell phone and what people talk around about at the coffee table or at the bar or whatever the case
perception
is.
becomes reality.
Yeah, and I've seen it. I've seen it before in the dot bomb and .com era. I've seen it in the recession, and when you start to read things and everybody starts talking about it, it becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So
Right.
if everybody talks about how interest rates are going to tank the residential market, it very well may do it on that public perception alone. If the perception is that the market is soft, then whatever you're asking for the property, I should just kick you a little bit below the belt or in the knees and see where it goes. In a hot market, the perception is there's no room to negotiate, so I don't even bother because I get laughed at. And then if I try it a couple of times and I get laughed at or I get kicked out of the deal or I don't get it, then I've learned my lesson and I stop doing it. The dilemma will be is as soon as buyers perceive that there's room to negotiate and for lack of a better word, haggle, right? And there's a right and a wrong way to do it, and that's a whole nother show. But if I felt like the door was kicked open a little bit where there was some amount of softness, where I'm just going to pick a number. I'm asking $1 million, I would take $950. Somebody's going to come in and ask for $9. Somebody's going to come in insulting and ask for $8. And then it will drive the market down because somebody might be desperate. And the $1 million might have been such an inflated number in the first place to the seller that he was happy to get $9.
Yeah,
Right? But the perception is, oh my gosh, the market's soft. This guy took a big haircut. And now people see that, and then they go, oh, the market's soft, and it will drive it down. That's my biggest concern.
And the perception can be among the sellers. I better take this because the market's softening. Oh my God, I thought I could get $1 million, and now they're offering $9. I better take it.
Yeah, but now where you have it in the real estate cycle is the seller's going, I want top dollar. I even want
More.
higher than top dollar. And then if I have to retrade, it's still really high in the first place, then I don't care. Right? And so we will see how that plays itself out as we move forward.
Don't panic. Tune in to Let's Talk Real Estate. Let's talk this through. Let's not panic and overreact one way or the other. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, and I'd say for our listeners and our viewers out there, be smart. Don't believe everything you read and see on TV, and make your own decisions and make sure that you're making a solid investment, whatever you do, and that you have that you're informed and you've looked at both sides of the equation. And that's what we try and help people look at here on the show. And so for everyone here at the station, I want to thank Paul for coming back and helping with the show and
For getting revived to come back and do
for
this.
being revived. And we will see everybody else here back next week. I am Barry Saywitz, president of the Saywitz Company, managing partner of Barry Saywitz Properties. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk Real Estate. We'll see you here again next week.
Well, there you have it. You've been listening to Let's Talk Real Estate, your weekly BS with Barry Saywitz about the current state of the real commercial real estate market right here in Southern California. on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studio here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.